What's up, family? Happy Friday to you all. I know some of you guys are not home. You are out running the streets and doing what you do, and that's okay. But I am here to bring you guys some good content regarding mental health. As you know, on Fridays, we always have Mental Health Fridays. I have not been here for Mental Health Friday in a while, but I'm here. I'm here, and I have a great story, a sad story, but a great story for us to really talk about. Now, the reason why I say this story is great is because not only is it from New Jersey, woohoo, shout out to Jersey, because you know I'm in Jersey. Not only is it great because it's from New Jersey, but it's great because it's some good information for us to unpack. Some really good information for us to be able to see things from both perspectives. Now, I want to give you guys some disclaimers before I get into my housekeeping while you all are piling in. So here's my disclaimer. In this situation, I'm just going to examine what is. I know some of y'all get so hot, y'all get so upset. You want to have an all-out war on social media because you know some of you all are social media gangster. Y'all want to get all angry and hyped up, but that's not what I'm about. It is about critically examining these stories and thinking about things and seeing ourselves in another person's shoes. That's what we do for Mental Health Fridays. This is Mental Health Fridays. This is not all out war. We're going to get angry, go burn up the communities. It's not that. This is Mental Health Fridays. We have to really look at what's going on. We have to manage our emotions and we have to be able to see things from multiple angles. And as always, at the end of the video, I will give you guys some things to think about. Not only about the diagnosis that we're going to talk about today, which is bipolar, but about what we need to start doing as a community because we tend to get upset about the same stuff over and over again. And y'all got me questioning y'all mental health. I'm just saying. So without further ado, I need you all to do a few things for me. Family, 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 family. If you are on YouTube, I am going to need you all to not only subscribe to the channel, not only do I want you to hit the notification bell, but most importantly, I want you to share the video. Share, share, share the video. You have to share the video and you have to communicate in the chat because y'all know my channel is not a channel that gets promoted everywhere. So I need you all to help me get the word out there. Somebody says they're not hearing any sounds. Is anybody else hearing sounds? I need you all to let me know you are hearing sounds. If you're not hearing sounds, let me know so I can correct that immediately. Okay. Number two, on my end is showing that my sound is working. I'm not sure what you're seeing on your end, but y'all got to let me know if you're hearing sound. Okay. Somebody says sound is good. So VTB 561, you got to do something on your end. Number two, if y'all on Facebook, I shout out to all my Facebook people. To all my Facebook people, I want y'all to say hello. Y'all be low, y'all be in the cut, but my Facebook people, I'm here. I love you guys. Just say hello. But to my Facebook people, I need you not only to like the page and follow the page, but most importantly, I need you to interact in the chat because my YouTube community, we take over the scene and y'all be acting all silent on Facebook. And I want y'all to know that we love y'all too. We love y'all too. And I know I primarily talk to my YouTube family, but Facebook, y'all numbers are just as strong in terms of the likes and the follows. I need you all to be active on Facebook. I love you all. So let's get going. Najee Seabrooks. May this young brother rest in peace. 31 years old. He is no longer with us. His life has been taken by Paterson Police Department. No longer with us. I need you all to just shout this brother out because there's some facts about this case we need to talk about that I'm not too sure that many of you all know about. And I don't hear it being spoken about in the YouTube clips that I have reviewed so far. I need to hear more about the underlying details on this case in order for everything to be put into perspective. So let me just take this opportunity right quick to tell you all about Najee Seabrooks. Unfortunately, family, I didn't upload any pictures today. Y'all forgive me. I wish I did do that. I just was running really fast. And if I can put up a picture, I'm going to share the screen with you guys about who he is. So give me a second. Let me try to bring that up. But I didn't download my pictures ahead of time. Nonetheless, Najee Seabrooks, he is said to be a 31-year-old out of Paterson, New Jersey. This is a guy who was a part of a place called Paterson Healing Collective, which is a organization, a 501c3, I believe they are, organization that is set up to work with victims, shooting victims, and other victims in the city of Paterson, trying to heal the community, dealing with their mental health issues, dealing with the trauma that they receive out of the community. Okay. He apparently called 911. He was having a break. Somebody said, what's his name again? His name is Najee Seabrook. Najee Seabrook. Thank you for asking me that. I'm going to bring up a quick picture. It's not going to be the best only because I didn't download pictures ahead of time, but I want to show y'all. Okay. This is pictures of Naji, just so you can see who he is. It's important for you to know who he is. Okay, this is a picture here of the police that were in his apartment from Paterson PD. This is a picture here of the vigil that was held as a result of the killing that occurred um, inside of his mom's apartment. Here's the police inside the apartment as they were there for a few hours, in which I'm going to talk about trying to de-escalate the situation. Here's a picture of one of the police officers that fired the shot when he came out the bathroom, and he progressed toward Paterson PD with a knife in his hand, and that's what ultimately took his life. Okay, now that I have his name, let's talk about this. Here's what I know. Apparently, Najee Seabrooks called Paterson PD for help. Paterson PD arrived on the scene with crisis negotiators, the fire department, and emergency response team. They were there for hours trying to de-escalate the situation. Allegedly, Naji had told the police or whomever that he had two knives and a gun. He was in the bathroom. He barricaded himself in the bathroom. They tried to talk him out of the bathroom for hours. They heard a large crash in the bathroom. They broke down the door and they found that he had cut himself and he was bleeding. They still try to talk to him and try to get him some help. They were pleading with him. Approximately 4 hours later, Naji had aggressed toward the police in an aggressive manner, allegedly, with a knife in his hand. According to the body cam, what was seen was he was coming in the direction of the police. A directive was given for him to drop the knife, in which the police officers, whom the names, not doesn't matter to me, but it might matter to some of y'all. I didn't look up the names, but a police officer or a couple of police officers, I'm not too sure, fired shots. They opened fire. What is being said about Naji is that he worked as a violence prevention specialist for an organization called Paterson Healing Collective. According to Paterson Healing Collective, they have stated that they had asked the police to have them present and not to intervene. They wanted to be the person there because not only did he work with them, they knew more about his history. So they wanted to be the person there as he was having his mental health crisis to be able to de-escalate it, the situation. Apparently, in the past, Najee Seabrooks was a gunshot victim, and he started to work with Paterson Healing Collective afterwards. He was apparently going through some type of mental health break. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that, y'all. He was going through some type of mental health break, and he had not only contacted Paterson PD, but he also contacted members of the Paterson Healing Committee Collision. What is it called? Collective, the Paterson Healing Collective. Here's where it gets kind of funny. Paterson Healing Collective is saying that Paterson PD declined to use them as a resource to get him out the bathroom. Paterson Healing Collective said that they have members on team, they have people who are ready to work with people that are in mental health crises, and they feel that if the police would have allowed them to enter into the scene and talk to Najee Seabrooks, they believe they would have been able to de-escalate the situation and get him out of the bathroom. Somebody, a member of the Paterson Healing Collective, has said that Najee Williams had family members that were present at that time that he was not close to. And they feel that they would have been more successful with de-escalating the situation and getting him out the bathroom. They do not believe that he was an aggressor. According to the Paterson Healing Collective, they say they have a relationship with Paterson Police Department. However, when I was speaking to the director of the organization and she was talking about the relationship, it didn't seem like it was like a real deep relationship with Paterson PD. It seems like, if you're going to have an event, you call the cops for them to be present. If you're going to have some type of community affair, you call the cops for them to be present. You may call the cops to have them come in to speak to the members of the community. But I don't know what is meant by a relationship. I don't see that. That's not the here or there. I'm not here to judge or criticize the organization. I'm just saying, when you say a relationship, y'all know me, I'm a relationship expert. I want to know exactly what do you mean when you say a relationship? Because I would imagine if you had a relationship with Paterson PD, you would have been a part of that negotiation process. That's what I would imagine, but I could be wrong, and that's okay. Let's talk about this organization real quick before we get into what I want y'all to know for Mental Health Fridays. This organization, again, the name is Paterson Healing Collective. They are said to be established in 2020, and they are affiliated with St. Joe's Hospital in Paterson. This is an organization where I looked through their body of their staff. I see one person, and again, let me put a disclaimer out here, because I know how some people get in their feelings, they get in their emotions, they see my personality, they see how strong I am when I say things, and they may interpret a lot of things about who I am and what I'm trying to say. So let me make this very clear for everybody. I don't know any of the members of the Paterson Healing Collective. I'm not here to judge the Paterson Healing Collective. I'm not here to scrutinize them, criticize them. I'm just going to point out some facts for you in this case, because the statement that they are making is, if the police, and I'm going somewhere with this, y'all just going to have to follow the bouncing ball. If the police would have allowed them on the scene to talk to Naji, they believe they could have de-escalated the situation. Now, that could be true. I'm not here to say that's true, that's false. We're going to examine some questions. So I want y'all to start putting in the chat some questions that you would have asked about what went down. So I told you the story. He's in the bathroom, 31 years old, experiencing some type of mental health crisis. He calls Paterson Police Department. Paterson Police Department show up with 3 different units: emergency response team, the fire department, crisis intervention. They show up with 3 different units of their police department, and there are hours in this apartment playing with Najee Seabrooks to come out of the bathroom. Not only were they playing with this young man, but the mother, through her tears, is pleading with her son to come out of the bathroom, communicating that I'm your mother. I'm here for you. I need you to come out. So there are police all through the apartment. There's mama crying through the door. There's the Paterson Healing Collective that apparently arrived to the scene but was not allowed in the apartment. I don't know all the facts about that. But there's a lot of people there. And this young man is in the bathroom, refusing to come out, allegedly stating that he has a gun and 2 knives. Now we know from the body cam he had at least 1 knife. Right? Somebody said no one had a less lethal option. Okay, so we're going to put that on the screen. I want y'all to throw in your comments. I want y'all to start unpacking this because this is a critical conversation. And it's a critical conversation that we need to have because some of us in this chat tonight will be in this kind of situation where we don't know what to do when our family member is having a mental health crisis. And some of us, by default, is going to call 911. We're going to ask for the police protection. We're going to call that. Right? Are we in agreement with that? That's what's going to happen for many people in our community. So we have to really start thinking preventative. We need to have this conversation because maybe we have to change something in how we're responding to our family members or our loved ones when they're having a mental health crisis. We can't wait for the situation to get out of hand to now sit back and analyze it after somebody is dead. It doesn't work that way. That's called intervention. That's called we intervene after the fact. We need to prevent, stop it from happening. Right? So it says, somebody else says here, seems like the people that could have talked to him out of the bathroom was not inside the house. Maybe. Let's talk about that. Let me tell you why I said maybe, Robin. I said maybe because when I go to the website of the Paterson Healing Collective and I look at all the members, now Dr. Liza Chowdhury, I think that's how you pronounce her name, not too sure, don't want to botch it up, but her name is Liza, so we're going to call her Dr. Liza. I don't know her personally. Maybe we might meet one day because I'm located in Paterson too, so we might meet one day. I don't know. But I'm not too sure what the doctor is under. I don't know if it's a doctor of education. I don't know if it's a doctor of, I don't know, right? Because there's a lot of us that are doctors, but we're all in different fields. I happen to be a doctor of social work. I happen to be a doctor of social work who holds a license of clinical social work. So therefore I can treat and I can diagnose people. Right? That's what I am able to do because my credentials give me that authority to be able to do that. I have my CEUs every year that I have to complete in order to make sure my license stay current. I pay money for my license. I take an oath. I sign it. I have my card. I have everything that says, hey, if there's a crisis, I'm a doctor of social work online. I'm licensed to practice. I'm going to step in. I'm licensed in 2 states. Utah and New Jersey, right? So I have that ability to be able to treat and diagnose people. I say that to say that if you have a doctor in front of your name, you can be a doctor in some type of field that's not related to the diagnoses and treatment of people. Understand where I'm going with this? So I go through the website. I saw one person, one person on the website who is a licensed social worker, not a licensed clinical social worker. There's a difference, but a licensed social worker. It's important for us to know that because a licensed social worker should be, if they're going for the LCSW, which is their licensed clinical social work, should be under somebody like me for their training. So just like a medical doctor, which is an MD, right? A medical doctor goes to residency and they're under a doctor for their training to get the experiences before they can sit and practice on their own, right? It's the same thing of a licensed social worker. They have to be in residency under somebody like me for 3,000 clinical hours in the state of New Jersey, which is roughly 5 years, right? They upped it. It used to be 1,920 hours. Now it's 3,000 hours. But they have to be in residency, which we call supervision, for 5 years. It used to be 2.5 years. They said, we ain't doing that no more. 5 years. So now it's 5 years. So they have to be under us for 5 years, learning under us, being in supervision, meeting with people, learning how to diagnose, learning how to look for the signs. They have to be under us in order to do it. So she's an LSW with this organization. I'm not going to say she's not in supervision. She could be, she may not be in supervision. But if she's not in supervision, she's not able to practice without being under the tutelage of somebody who's an LCSW. So when you say you can arrive on a scene to be able to help somebody, what is the evidence of that? Now, we're going to talk about this, family. I had to really get that out there because I don't want y'all to think I'm being mean. I'm not being mean. I know a lot of y'all like to think that I'm being mean, but I'm not being mean. This is critical for our community because there are so many people in our community that swear up and down that they are equipped to help. And that if they were on a scene, and I'm not talking about Paterson Healing Collective, because maybe they are equipped to help. I'm not talking about them. I'm saying in general. I'm saying in general. No, it is not 2 hours. Just so you can know that. It is not 2 hours. 3,000 hours is not 2 hours. It is not. When you're doing this residency, it is not 2 hours. It's not 2 years. That's what I mean. It's not 2 years. So you cannot turn around and diminish it. It's not. Most people are not working around the clock. In our world, in a clinical world, we do not see patients for 40 hours. We would need to be on medication ourselves if we saw people for 40 hours. That is not how our field practices. So please do not say that. Please do not come on here and say 3,000 hours is 2 years. Please do not do that. Because you'll be making up something that is not true. Our clinical hours are 45 minutes apiece. So please do not come on here saying things that are inaccurate. Our clinical hour is 45 minutes apiece. When you sit down with me, one clinical hour is 45 minutes. So please do not come on here and say 3,000 hours. That would be inaccurate. To say that 3,000 hours is 2 years. That would be completely inaccurate. Please do not do that. Please do not diminish my field of work, my field of study. Okay? So as I was saying, the reason why I bring that up is because there are a lot of people, and I'm not talking about the Paterson Healing Collective. I'm just saying in general. There's a lot of people that turn around and they say, oh, well, if you would have called me, I would have been able to help. Based on what evidence? Based on what would you be able to help with? Were you aware of this person's diagnosis? Are you aware? What would you be able to do to help? I mean, that's a critical question because I hear that so much. Let me tell y'all something. I was working in a community, a organization as a trauma specialist in Newark, New Jersey. And see, trauma and mental health disorders, it affects everybody. I don't care if you are a resident. I don't care if you are a staff member. I don't care if you are the president of the United States of America. If you have a mental health disorder and you are suffering from an episode, okay? There are certain signs and symptoms that we look at that we know. Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna pause right there. I'm gonna address her again. According to the NASW New Jersey, 3,000 hours is 2 years. Do you understand that most people do not do their LSW hour work as full-time clinicians? It is not 2 years. It is not 2 years. And you say, I'm an ASW in California. I'll be done in 2 years. Maybe Jersey is different somehow now. It is not 2 years. People as LSWs are not working for a private practice for full-time hours, seeing 35 patients. They're not doing that. It is not 2 years. It is not, with all due respect. With all due respect, it is not. I am an LCSW, and it took me 2 years to complete 1,920 hours. So I'm going to stop to speak to you because I need you to understand that it is not 2 years. There are so many people in my state who have not completed their LCSWs because it is not 2 years. Once they up those hours, it's not. I've had people who work with me at my business for 2 years and only completed 500 hours because they're only coming in 10, 15, 20 hours a week. It is not 2 years. Maybe some people in California can afford to work for pennies while they're studying to complete their clinical hours. Maybe they can do that and they can afford California rent. But here in New Jersey, I would assume that California is as expensive as New Jersey. But when your two-bedroom apartment is about 3 bands, you are not working full-time at somebody else's practice for $40 an hour. You're just not going to do it with no health insurance. It is not 2 years. So back to my story. As I was stating, if you have somebody on your staff who is an LSW, who's to say this person is properly trained to be able to assist in a crisis situation when someone is having a breakdown? As I was stating, when I was working as a trauma specialist in Newark, New Jersey, I would have senior management, that's, the uppity ups, will come to me and say, this is a situation we're facing with the staff member. Give me all the facts. I would observe the staff member myself, speak to the staff member myself. I can tell from my interaction with the staff member that this person was having a break, a psychotic break. But here's the thing, what I'm saying to y'all family, there's so many people who they want to call in a professional, and then when a professional gives you their clinical assessment and feedback, they don't go with the information. They don't go with the information. They say, no, we're not going to do that. Oh, I understand. Thank you so much for that. You give me a lot of insight, but they still carry on with business as normal until something happens. So I say this to say, here it is. We have this young man, 31 years old. Listen, it is said, because I got inside information, y'all. I got inside information. It is said that this person is reportedly bipolar. We're going to go over bipolar because I know a lot of y'all have family members, if not some of y'all in this chat, have family members that suffer from bipolar. And there's 3 different types, right? Most of us usually focus on bipolar 1 or bipolar 2, but it's 3 different types, right? But I'm saying a lot of y'all have bipolar diagnosis, whether it's 1, 2, or just depression. There's a lot of y'all that have bipolar diagnosis in your family, and some of y'all are suffering it right now. And people don't really fully understand what it is like for someone who is challenged with bipolar. But everyone believes that they can go into the scene and work with them and de-escalate them and get them back on track. Everybody believes this. Everybody believes this. I've seen it happen with people who hire me to come in as their clinical consultant to make sure that their staff is well. And when I give them feedback and diagnosis of what is happening, nobody wants to be able to really receive this. So just imagine when you're in a situation such as what Najee Seabrooks was in. You're in a situation and you're in your home, you're having a psychotic break. Who in the home is really equipped to understand what you're experiencing? Not even mommy could get him out the bathroom. Mommy was crying, according to the police body cam. She was crying. She was pleading with him to come out of the bathroom. We want to get you some help. We want to help you. Nobody's here to hurt you. Come on out. And that didn't work. But now we have an organization, and maybe they're right. Who knows? I'm not here to say they're right or wrong. But now we have an organization that's saying that if they were utilized, they would have been able to get him out of the bathroom. I will hope that would be true. I will hope that would be true. I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know. I just know when I go and I look at it and I look at the people on staff to see who's on staff to be trained. Listen to what I'm saying. Y'all know some of y'all about to get in your feelings, and that's okay. But who on staff is trained that could have effectively got him out the bathroom? The one licensed social worker? Maybe not. The program director? Maybe not. The other interventionists that were working there? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. But I don't want us to start to diminish people in their mental health challenges because it can get really real when somebody is having a break. Here's what I need y'all to know. It is said that this individual had bipolar. Now, I don't know if he had bipolar 1, bipolar 2, or just the depressive part of bipolar. I don't know. I don't know if this person was on mood stabilizers, which would be the way to go. I don't know if he was on mood stabilizers. I don't know if he was on an antidepressant, and I hope he wasn't on an antidepressant without a mood stabilizer by itself. But, you know, some doctors, some psychiatrists, which are medical doctors, by the way. I'm not throwing no shade, but some of them be misprescribing people. They be giving some bipolar people just antidepressants with no mood stabilizer, and that's not the way to go. you don't do that. You can give an antidepressant with a mood stabilizer, but you don't just give an antidepressant. But that's what they do. I don't know if he was on a medication. This person barricaded himself in the bathroom. He was threatening to set, now y'all didn't hear this, but I got the inside scoop. He was threatening to set the apartment on fire. When he was in the bathroom, he is said to have damaged the pipes, which caused the water to flood out the bathroom. And by the time the bathroom the door was breached and the cops went in, he advanced toward the police with the knife. This is where it gets murky. This is where it gets crazy, because that's what some people in our community will turn around and say, well, he had a knife. Did they have to shoot him? And I used to say the same thing. I used to say the same thing too. Yeah, now you ain't have to shoot him. But see, then this is where a division of roles come into place. What a mental health person would do, what a family member would do, what a girlfriend would do, what a colleague would do is not what a police officer is going to do. So the question comes out, was this killing justified? I'm not here to tell you whether or not the feeling was justified. Give me a second, y'all. Somebody's asked me a question. Lithium is typically used for schizophrenia. That's your answer. Lithium is typically used for schizophrenia. That is your answer, okay? I'm not a police officer, but I will tell you this, that in most police departments, I'm not going to say all, but in most police departments, they're not social workers. They're not coming out to sit down and ask you if you was frustrated, to try to calm you down. They're not coming out to do that. They're not going to come out wrapped in pattern to be able to take a knife wound. They're not coming out to your house to do that. They're not coming out to do that. And so I asked you guys before in a previous video, what are we going to do? Are we going to be calling the cops in our community, or we're not calling the cops in the I need y'all to get very clear. Because we call the cops, and then when the cops do what the cops do, we get mad at them doing what they do. Now, in some instances, cops use lethal force. That is not justified. In some instances, cops go overboard and they need to be put under the jail. In some instances, they're just taking out their anger and their aggression and they're abusing their power and they're doing things that need us to stomp on their heads and let them know how it feels. In some instances, cops are out of control. And we know that, and we all agree for that. We all agree. We all agree. Right? We all agree. But there's so many of us that turn around and we say that they didn't have to shoot him. And that is both true and it is false. It is both true and it is both false. There is not an either or. It's gray. It's so many things that's going in there because we see in situation, I don't know if y'all know about this, but in Newark, New Jersey, there was an incident that happened where this guy was, at his girlfriend in a domestic dispute, and he had a knife in his hand and he was threatening her and she was scared for her life. She called 911. The cops come. He still has the knife. When the cops come, the cops did not draw out their gun. They did not advance toward this guy in aggressive fashion. They just allowed him to wield his knife. One cop thought he was Karate King, Kung Fu Joe, thought he was going to do something special with this guy that had a knife. The guy that had the knife taught the cop that he was not going to do anything special because the guy that had the knife went after the cop. I don't know if he hit that cop or not, but we see on the camera that cop flees the building for his life, leaving his partner in the building. See, y'all really think that these cops, I'm just telling y'all really think that these cops are like some really great trained people and they can, know how to shoot you in the kneecap. They're going to shoot you in the ankle. They're going to shoot you in the elbow. They're going to do everything but mass body. That's what y'all think. I don't think that way, but y'all think that way. They could shoot him in the knee. They could have disarmed him. They could have shoot him in the ankle. They could have shoot him in the elbow. They could have done. No, it doesn't work that way. Even in that situation in Newark, New Jersey, no cop pulled out his gun. No cop pulled out his gun. He runs toward one of the cops that was left in the building when the other cop fled the building. He runs toward him with the knife. That cop did not pull his gun and he got stabbed up. Stabbed up on the floor, bleeding out. And thank God a whole bunch of other units came. So in that situation, The community was mad. The community was like, why didn't the cops pop him? Why didn't the cops pop him? But in this situation, the community is mad. The cops didn't have to shoot him. I don't know. I don't know if the shooting was justified. If I was a police officer, I would say, yeah, it was. He had a knife. He was responding in a threatening manner. We was there for a few hours. I think it was 4 hours or 6 hours. We was trying to calm him down. They had all units present. They used rubber bullets before they used real bullets. Nothing worked for him. There was hours of communication, hours of negotiation. But the knife was the key. The knife said, okay, now it is a threat. Family, this isn't television. This situation is not television. This is not movies. Cops are not going to aim for your kneecap. It's not going to happen that way. They aren't social workers. They aren't clinicians. They aren't mental health professionals. They aren't doctors. They're not going to turn around and try to negotiate with you and ask you, how do you feel? You seem angry today. What is something we can do to make you feel better on a scale of 1 to 10? The anger scale, 1 to 10, what are you? Oh, you're at a 2. Okay, what can we do to get you to a 3? They're not going to do those kind of things. That's not going to happen. Right? They're not expected to sit down there and negotiate with somebody in terms of their mental health. They're not going to aim to just hit your wrist with the gun, with the bullet, so you could drop the knife. That's not going to happen. They are trained for large body mass. You coming after them, and their mind is you versus me. It's either going to be you or me. And I tell you guys, family, all the time, the gun is going to win. If you have a knife and somebody else has a gun, the gun is going to win. They're trained to shoot large body mass. And the community is upset. Now let's get into this because I'm about to be out of here. Why couldn't they exit the home and let him be in his space? I'm not a police officer, okay? I'm not a police officer. But I would imagine that their policy doesn't allow them to exit their home and let him be in his space when the threat is to set the apartment on fire. I would imagine that they don't do it because then they damned if they do, they damned if they don't. They leave the apartment, say, Mom, we tried. We was here for 6 hours. And I'm not being funny. I'm just gonna run this by you real quick, RJ. We were here for 6 hours. He doesn't seem to want to come out the bathroom. We just say, just let him calm down, leave him alone. And, if anything, if he comes out the bathroom and you want us to come back and take him to crisis, call us back. We'll be back. And then all of a sudden he sets the house on fire. And then y'all gonna be like, why did the police leave? The police knew that he was gonna set the house on fire. The police knew that he was having a crisis. I don't know. And this is why we like to have these kind of critical conversations. This is why we have to have this kind of discussion. We have to be able to do that. He called the cops. And I don't know what the police protocol. Do we got any police officers in the room? I know usually we got a few police officers that are always in this room. Do we have any police officers here? Is that protocol? Can somebody call y'all in this kind of crisis and then y'all say we just gonna let him be in his space and we're gonna leave? Is that possible? Right? I don't know. I'm asking. Is that possible? I'm asking. So if y'all have any police officers, I don't see any of the names that I'm used to seeing as cops in here. But if y'all any cops in here, don't be afraid. Anybody gonna come and stalk y'all. Just go ahead and let me know. Like, I don't know. Y'all just let me know. Yeah, we could turn around and walk out that situation. If he said he's going to set um fire to an apartment, or if he said he had a gun and two knives, whatever the case is, can y'all now just turn around and say, listen, mom, we tried. We was here for 4 hours, 5 hours. Listen, my shift is about to end. I would like to put my kids to bed. Listen, my wife and I, we about to go out to dinner and everything. I'm tired of listen, I worked a double. I'm going over into triple time. I just can't do this anymore. So yeah, we try to help you out, mom. Why don't you call us when he calms down? We be back. Is that possible? Now let's talk about the questions that I have for the community. Maybe some of y'all need to know about the bipolar. Before we get into the question, let me just break down some typical things when it comes to bipolar. Some typical things. I'm just giving y'all the overall. Somebody says we are not allowed to leave in that situation. Here's a cop. We are not allowed to leave in that situation. There you have it. Why? Why aren't you allowed to leave in that situation? Why don't you just shoot him in the ankle, shoot him in the elbow? Why do y'all gotta bring him down? Why y'all gotta shoot to kill? Why y'all gotta be so extreme? Somebody else says, usually people keep them out of the hospital because they won't. They checked. Okay, I don't know if they talk to somebody else. I'm gonna stop reading that. Why? Why can't y'all just shoot them in the ankle, or shoot them in the elbow, or like they do in the movies, right? Because that's what some I don't want to know that, because I know that's not real life. But some people want to know that. Some people want to know that. Why? So as you get formulating your question, I'm gonna keep going on, and then when your question comes on, I'm gonna read it. We are trained to shoot at the center mass. So not trained to shoot in the elbow, not trained to shoot in the ankle, not trained to hit the shoulder and bring them down, center mass. So the goal is to bring them down. When there's danger, when there's risk, is to bring them down. So it goes back to the question over and over again that I keep on asking our community. If you do not want that kind of interaction, and I'm not being a hard ass, I just really need to have the conversation with you all. If you do not want that kind of interaction, please help me or help us to understand, why do you call 911? Why do you call 911? We have to be able to have this kind of conversation, because a lot of us in our community, we just get angry, we just get upset. We have to be able to have this conversation. This is a man who's plugged into an organization that was trained to deal with the trauma of the violence in Paterson, New Jersey. Why isn't that the first place we call? Okay, so somebody says something here. So we have any correction officers here? They said, but when they go crazy in the prison cells, they don't shoot them. They rush them. Now I know the answer to that. But I want to see any CEOs in here. Any CEOs in here so y'all can answer that? Because I know why they don't get shot in the prison cells. But I'm not law enforcement. I'm mental health. So any law enforcement officers can tell them why they don't get shot in the prison cells, right? Can somebody tell them, no, that's not the answer, Robin? Robin said they belong. Oh, they don't have real weapons in jail. I don't know what real weapons are, but they don't have firearms. The CEOs are not walking around in firearms, so that's why they don't go into the prison to shoot you. You see, we have to really think critically. We have to really think critically and not with our emotions. We get so angry. We get so angry, but we really have to think. Right? There you go. CEOs don't have guns in the prison cell. Now they do have guns. They do have guns, but they don't have them in the prison cells. See, a lot of COs off duty, they'll have their weapon right on them. Don't ever get it mistaken. COs do have guns. But even in some of the local prisons, when you go and you get arrested and you got to sit in the jail at your precinct, a lot of those cops in the jail in the precinct, they don't even have a gun on their body. Why? So you can get in a scuffle with them and the criminal could take the gun and blast the officer? They don't do stuff like that. See, we got to think. We got to think. We got to think. Mental health, real quick. Bipolar. Many people get diagnosed, number one, because bipolar can turn around and just look like depression. Right? It can look like a depression diagnosis, and depression and bipolar is not the same. Now, do they have some crossover? They can have crossover, but they're not the same. And the first episode of bipolar typically starts around 20 years old. It can come as early as 15 years old, but usually, typically speaking, the first episode is about 20 years old. And bipolar can include or does include depression and mania. Some doctors, because they may just think it's a depression situation, may prescribe antidepressants, and antidepressants don't typically work well with just bipolar, like with just the antidepressant, right? It may work, it may not work. So if it works, doctors typically think, okay, well, it was depression. But if you just give an antidepressant, it can cause mixed states. You're going to see a lot of highs and lows. It's important for us to also realize that depression is generational. We always want to assess the person to see what family history is there. So we walking around thinking that this is just happening out of the clear blue sky. A lot of times it's related to the person's family line. It's already there. This is a person that depression, bipolar is usually 3 or more depressive episodes in 5 years. So maybe some people might think, some family members might think they're just going through a funk. They're just in a depressed state. They're going through a funk. But we're talking about 3 or more depressive episodes in 5 years. And it's usually cyclical, right? Is usually cyclical, meaning it occurs on a frequent basis. We're not talking about there's a death and then you get sad. We're not talking about, you didn't get the job interview and you got sad. We're not talking about that. It's way bigger than that. And the episodes, when they occur, they can be months apart. They can be years apart. You may have an episode back to back to back, and the next thing you know, nothing happens for 2 years. But the key is the repetition. The key is noticing the patterns. The key is looking how many times does this come about over and over and over again. You may not realize the mania part of depression, especially if it's hypomania. You may not realize it because hypomania can go under the radar. It can go unnoticed when it comes to bipolar. Most people look for the mania, the manic part of bipolar. Most people look for that because that becomes really apparent to many, not all, but many. So the reason why I bring this up is because this guy is said to have had bipolar. This guy is said to have had a break. I personally feel if we start educating our community on mental health, mental illness, the signs of what to look for. I personally believe if we start educating our community on medication, the types of medications that work, I personally believe if we start taking a more proactive stance on how we work with our family members who have mental illnesses, as opposed to just calling them crazy or ignoring them or say, oh, he needs to take his medication, she needs to take a medication. And we personally take a different approach and we start to educate not only ourselves but other family members of the signs to look for, so we can get ahead of the manic episodes, so we can get ahead of the breaks, so we can get ahead of the crisis, so we can be preventative in our approaches. I personally think we can do some wonders in our community. That's what I think. I think we shouldn't have to wait until another situation happens where police arrive on the scene and the person is in a mental health crisis. And then next thing you know, the person has what is identified as a weapon. They take an advancement toward the officers shoot them, then we're protesting. As a mental health professional, I really do think that we have to get ahead of these things. We have to notice things. Even right now, y'all haven't seen me because I've taken on a new client population. And I'm working with those who are classified as severe and mentally ill. Those are our schizophrenic disorders, schizoaffective disorders, our bipolar disorders, our major depression disorder. Those are those people that are classified of living with those kind of illnesses in my community. And I will tell you right now, there are some people where I feel because of the lack of education, the lack of experience, they may be working in the field, but they're not clinicians. The lack of education, the lack of experience, they take a lot of things for granted. They diminish a lot of things. And when I'm seeing certain things, I'm like, this is psychiatric instability. This is a crisis situation. I see it before it happens. And it's like a nightmare for me because I can just see a crisis happening and somebody getting hurt bad. Because a lot of things are unchecked, a lot of things are ignored, and there's a lot of people who are not taking their medication. They're not even having counseling around their medication. They're not even having education around their medication. There aren't even professionals coming into the organization to educate them on the use of their medication and why they should take it. None of that stuff is happening. I think a lot of people in our community, we decrease or diminish the effects of mental health. I see people who will flip and threaten to burn down a building because their temperature is too high in their apartment. I'm not making this stuff up. I am not making this stuff up. I've seen people, despite the de-escalation, threaten to kill everybody in the building because their apartment, their single unit is too hot. Too hot. And we diminish these kind of things. We say stuff like, they always get like that. They'll calm down. Leave them alone. They'll calm down. They're not going to do anything. They're always making threats until something really happens. We even see it in our family. We know something is not right, but we say they'll calm down. Just don't say anything. Just leave them alone. Do you know how painful it is for a person who suffers from a disability? Do you know how painful it is for them? It's very painful. It's very painful. And even just saying, leave them alone, ignore them, they'll calm down. That's painful. You don't ignore them. You don't ignore them. I'm not saying you agitate them, but even saying they'll calm down. Let's just get out of his space. They'll calm down. It's all right. Have an episode. Have an episode. We need education. So here's what I'm going to say, and I'm out of here. The community's upset. This is Mental Health Fridays, y'all. Just in case y'all logging on, y'all don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Mental Health Fridays is when I unpack something that is related to mental health. Want us to think, want us to see things. In this situation here, we just happen to have a shooting by a police officer or police officers in Paterson, New Jersey, with a person who is believed to have suffered from bipolar. I don't know if it was bipolar 1. I don't know if it was bipolar 2, but this person is believed to have been diagnosed with bipolar and was experiencing a mental break. Here's what I'm going to say to y'all. I have some questions. Now, I asked you all to give me your questions, but I didn't see too many questions come in the chat. But I have some questions, and I want to know what you guys think about my questions. And I'm out of here. My first question, and it's the most important question, is why was the police called? I need to understand this. Is the police the place we should be calling when it's a mental health crisis? Should we be calling someone else? Um, I'm not saying not to call the police, but is that the first line of order for us? Is that the first line of order for those of us who are with family members that suffer from mental illnesses? Is our first line of defense police? And if so, why? And if not, why? I'm not putting any judgments. I'm asking y'all a question because this is what I want y'all to start thinking about. Should we call the police? Is that our first line of question? Are we very resourceful? Do we know what's available in our communities? Do we know if there are any options outside of the police when a crisis is occurring? Why were the police called? Let's see what Kari says. So Kari says mental health takes money. We're about to get there. I'm glad you brought up. I'm glad you brought up money. We're about to get there. Mental health takes money, time, and support. No offense. Most of the Black community don't have simple resources to manage mental instabilities. Most Black folk can't even acknowledge depression. Right? Now, this is his opinion, right? And I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying he's right. But one thing I know I want to examine is mental health takes money. Okay, somebody asked me a question. Sonia says, can police have mental health training or LCSWs on staff? Some police departments do have LCSWs on staff. Some of them do. And at the end of the day, their mental health training, they're not licensed. You can give somebody a workshop. Most people go to workshops all day. And do y'all ever listen to what they're saying? Most people go to training and they say this is just a training. I'm just gonna be here all day. I'm gonna leave about 4 o'clock and go home early. I ain't clocking in. I ain't going back to work. That's how y'all handle training. Let's just be honest. Let's be honest. And then there are a lot of political issues that go on with the LCSWs who are on staff. Let's just really talk about it. The LCSWs that are on staff, some police want to bring them along, some police don't want to bring them on, some chiefs are in their bag, and it's a lot of political stuff that goes along. There's a lot of LCSWs that have worked in police departments that are continuing to work in police departments, and there's a lot of clashing because police think they know better than the LCSW, and in some cases, the LCSW think they know better than the police. In the ideal world, Breezy says once a crisis team is put together to work with the police, it should be mandatory that the police go through training to learn how to work with team and allow the team leader to assess the person. In the ideal world, in some situations, that's just not going to happen. It's a lot of ideas, and there's nothing wrong with them. But in some situations, it's not going to happen. Question number 2. What was said over 911? When the 911 call went out, what was said? What was said? That determines a lot. And people have to understand that what you say to 911 when you call is very important. Is very important. That's going to determine the response you get. It's going to determine the response you get. So what was said over the 911? What are you guys prepared to say? If you have to call 911 because a member of your family is having a mental health break, I can't tell y'all what to say, but I'm asking you, what would you say? Because we have so many cases. Mr. Seabrooks is not the first case where this happened. We have so many cases where families have called to 911 for their child having a psychiatric break and their child ends up dead. What would you say? And I think we should know about these kind of things because that's what prevention looks like. Before you jump right in and out of your emotions and you call the 911, what are you going to say? What is the script? If you know you have a family member, and I'm not talking about Naji, may he rest in peace. I'm just saying in general family. If you know you have a family member that has a mental health disorder, what is the crisis plan in your house? This is important. What is the crisis plan in your house? What's your first line of contact? Who do you call first? What happens? What happens? How are you presenting yourself? Are you presenting yourself in a clear and concise manner? Do you have a crisis plan in place? If you live in a home with somebody who has a mental illness or they're challenged with a mental disorder, what is your crisis plan in place? This is why we need to have conversations with the mental health professionals. This is why we have to stop ignoring these kind of channels that talk about mental health. That's boring. I don't want to talk about it. This is why, because we're not thinking critically ahead of time. If you stop a moment and you think ahead of time, you'll be able to plan. You have to have a plan. Number 3, what are your preventative steps? What are your preventative steps? What I mean by that, another way of saying it, before it goes into a crisis, before your crisis plan has to be pulled out the drawer and you get to working, what are your preventative steps? Are you aware of what the cycle looks like for your loved one that has a mental illness or a mental disorder? Do you know what that cycle looks like? Do you know what their triggers are? Do you know to pay attention if they're eating, if they're sleeping? Do you know what they're doing? Are they taking their medication? Are their medications oral? Is it an injection? Do you know these different things? Do you know your different options? Do you know how the medication is supposed to work? Do you know what happens if the medication is not taken consistently or daily? Do you know these things ahead of time? This is all preventative work. What are the preventative steps before it gets to a crisis? When you start noticing something is off, when you start noticing here's that pattern again. I can understand if it's the first episode and you never saw it before, I can understand that. But once it's been diagnosed, once you know this is greater than what we think it is, you have to be active in your person's health care when it comes to their mental health challenges. And unfortunately, I'm not saying we do it in the chat. I like to think that we're perfect in the chat. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people, too many for my liking, who do not take a proactive approach to their family members' disabilities. I see oftentimes too many family members being dismissive of their family members' disabilities. Dismissive. How many times have I done treatment plans that require input for family members and the family members don't show up? Especially when I'm talking about my schizophrenic ones, my schizophrenic my patients who are challenged with schizophrenia. Their family members do not show up. They're not even a part of the planet. They don't even want to deal with them. Do you know how many of my patients feel alone, feel without family, feel without support. And then when I have my staff that constantly turn over, that hurts them as well. And they got nothing but loss and loss and loss and then loss in their life. And they need consistency. They can't take another loss or a break is going to come. Do you know that in my facility, I make sure we are processing with them when it's going to be a loss? If you're going to leave, if you're going to quit, you better do your 8-week. I don't want no 4-week planning. I want an 8-week planning. I want you to sit down and work with the people on your caseload for 8 weeks, letting them see reality that you're going to be leaving. Process that. Don't just put in your notice and the next thing you know, you out the door. You have an obligation to this community that we work with. You just cannot pick up and abandon them just like that. Even if I'm going to fire your ass, I'm going to transfer them off your caseload. I'm just trying to tell you, if you're about to get fired, I'm going to transfer them off your caseload. And I'm going to make sure that that transition goes well. I want you to work with them to transition them off your caseload. Your ass about to get fired. But I'm going to work with you to transition them off your caseload. That's what it looks like. That's what preventative steps look like. If you know every time he goes see his daughter and when he come home he's sad again, that he don't get a chance to really spend time with his daughter and his baby mama crazy, and that triggers him and it throws him into a frenzy. If you know that, what are you doing before he goes sees his daughter? What are you doing? Question number 4. In this kind of situation, when you have multiple people arriving at the scene, you have Paterson Healing Collective arriving at the scene, you have emergency response team, you have the fire department, you have crisis intervention, you have Paterson PD, you have everybody arriving at the scene. Who takes the lead? Are y'all even communicating before y'all get to the scene? Who's in the lead? And are the negotiators actually trained to speak to the person? Who's in the lead? Who is in the lead? Before, forget law enforcement, forget the fire department, forget crisis, forget the police department, and the family. Who's in the lead? Who is the person that the person who's having a crisis best responds to? Who? Who? It's a good question. I'm going to answer. I'm going to leave your question on the scene because I'm on the screen because I want to answer that. How do you collaborate? Question number 5. How would you collaborate? How would a collaborative relationship look like? So I hear a lot of people say that the police would have used us, the police would have called us. How would that relationship look like? See, you don't start to foster that relationship at the scene of a crisis. That relationship it don't work that way. If you are in that kind of organization that deals with mental illnesses, crime, etc., you have to foster your relationship with the police department from 21 Jump Street. You cannot wait for the day of crisis to start saying, well, we work together. You provide security for my events. It don't work that way. Relationship building and relationship fostering with the police department looks a certain kind of way. It looks a certain kind of way. And we don't even have to focus on the police department. We can talk about this in our family as well. If we want to have a collaborative relationship with those members, and this is where I'm going to bring me to Breezy's question, with those members of our community, we don't wait until there's a crisis to want to have a relationship. You think if you have not showed up and you have not been there for your family member, and now all of a sudden there's a crisis, you want to tell them to calm down, you think they're going to really listen to you? Are you serious? Now, when they're in a crisis, they're going to remember every dirty damn thing you did to them in their life, and you the last person they want to hear from. They're going to remember how shady you were. They're going to remember how you never was available when they needed you before they got to this place. They're going to remember all of that. Collaborative relationships don't happen when you're in a crisis. Collaborative relationships are developed way before a crisis ever comes. So that's what brings me to Breezy's question. Breezy said, Dr. Shonna, what is the basic step you would take if your loved one abruptly began having an emotional breakdown? See, I'm trained differently. See, the breakdowns are not abrupt in most cases. Can it be? Yes, but in most cases, they're not abrupt. You will start noticing things. If you know your family member suffers from a mental disorder or a mental illness, you got to be on top of it. You got to engage them in a certain way. You got to connect with them on a daily, check in with them on a daily. So when you ask me, what would I take before they abrupt? Let me tell you something. I have a special person in my life who has a mental illness diagnosis. I think this person is misdiagnosed. I think this person is borderline. This person is diagnosed as bipolar. However, oftentimes bipolar and borderline gets mixed up and it gets mixed diagnosed. But I can tell anytime she is about to spiral because the communication changes, the structure changes. And I remember before this person even got to that place, when I started to notice the change in signs, I upped the ante on my conversations, my phone calls. I developed a whole pattern in which I would make sure I would call in the morning, I would call in the night. I was speaking 2 times a day. I was asking, you want to go out? You want to do some things? If the person wanted to be by themselves, I would still show up. I was still show because I already knew what was happening. I already know the cycle. I already know what was about to go down. So there was no abruption. And the minute the person starts complaining about everything their children does, the offering of assistance was there. All right, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? What do you need me to do? But it takes a lot. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of money. And a lot of people don't want to do it. There are always signs before an abruption happens. There are always signs. But most people who are not in the field or in the industry don't want to dedicate the time because it's exhausting. And it can wear you out. It can wear your behind out dealing with somebody's issues day in and day out. You're like, oh my God, this is too much for me. And some people start to question. I mean, I know they got an issue, but don't you think they can control this? Don't you think don't know they can't. If they was able to control it, they would. So when you ask me, what would I immediately say or do? Preventative work. I'm doing preventative work. If I'm not able to do the preventative work and the person's already screaming and already shouting, I'm just gonna be there to listen. I'm just gonna be there to listen. I deal with that every day of my life. I get people that will bang on me, hang up the phone. I'm gonna kill everybody in this bitch and hang up the phone. And I just call back. Hey babe, how you doing? Hi beautiful, how are you? What's going on? You want to meet me downstairs? You want to come over now? What's going on? You're not fucking listening to me. Click, call back. Hi beautiful, what's going on? I am listening to you. You just keep hanging up on me. But I'll be right there. I'm just gonna come over. Let's stay on the phone together. I'm driving over there right now. Just calm down. I'll be there. Right now. Right? What do you need me to bring anything for you? You thirsty? You want anything? I'm not gonna be like, calm down. Why you screaming? You acting like that. They're gonna think you crazy. They're gonna call. I'm not doing all of that. Hey, beloved, how you doing, beautiful? I'm coming over right now. Come in. The plan is to meet the immediate need. But my capacity is kind of different, right? My capacity is different. But the goal is to meet the immediate need. If somebody is yelling and screaming, you can't ration with them. I don't care if they have a mental illness attached to them or not. They can be what they so-called say is normal. Ain't nobody normal, but they can be so-called normal. If they're already dysregulated and they're yelling and screaming, you can't rationalize with a yelling, screaming person. Be supportive. Just be there. Just be there. Right? Just be there. But some people are not able to tolerate the emotions of others. And that's what I mean when I say, what's your preventative plan? What's your crisis plan? If you know you're not a person that can tolerate somebody else's emotions, you should not be the first person knocking on the door talking about, calm down, I'm here, let me in the bathroom, I want to talk to you. You're annoying. You should be the last person to knock on the door. Because you know only a matter of time you're going to start talking reckless or doing reckless things. Well, if you ain't coming, I'm leaving, I'm going. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. How much do we know or understand about persistent, severe mental illnesses? How much do we know or understand about that? A lot of us don't. Severe, or in New York City, we would call that SPIMI. I'm not too sure what we refer to it in Jersey. They just, everywhere I read, it's just severe and mentally ill, right? But it's SPIMI, severe, persistently mentally ill population. That's your cluster A's, your cluster C's. They're in those categories, right? Maybe even cluster B's in there too. But they're the ones that have the severe and persistent, meaning it's not going to go away. This is what it is. This is what this person's going to live with. This is most of the time it's treated with medication if they take medication, right? Because a patient has a right to self-determination. But the point is, it's going to be there. So it's severe and it's persistent and it's going to be there. How many of us actually know about that? How many of us know how to work with that? How many of us have family members that obviously you could tell they're not getting better? And if you have a family member that you can tell that they're not getting better, what do you do to educate yourself on that person's diagnosis so that you can be there for them? What do you do? How receptive are we to medication? If you don't believe in medication, how are you going to support through different approaches, right? In my world, might be cognitive behavior techniques, right? How are you going to be able to support your family member in consistently taking the medication to treat their illness if you don't even believe in medication yourself? How are you going to do it? If we're not receptive to medication, if we think everybody always got a scheme to it, and I know the pharmaceutical company, man, listen here. I already know, but that's why I say to y'all, we can't be black and white in everything. Some things the medication does work. And I would never sit up here and tell you that it doesn't. But if we can't see it as a necessity, if we can't accept it as a treatment approach, how are you going to support your loved one that is suffering from a severe mental illness? How are you going to support them in their journey or in their process to stability, if not healing? How are you going to support them if you don't even buy into medication? I'm asking you guys these questions for a reason. So you have all these grandiose ideas of what it might look like for, let's say, law enforcement to come in to intervene in a crisis situation. You have all these grandiose ideas, but how are y'all doing? Did you rate yourself? How are you doing with being able to de-escalate your family members? Because if you were able to effectively de-escalate your family members, I would presume, and I could be wrong, and I'm okay with being wrong, I would presume you wouldn't call 911. I would presume you wouldn't call 911. So if you have a hard time with all these things, if you don't have a crisis plan in place, if you don't take preventative measures, if you don't know the triggers, if you don't know the cycle, if you're not aware of these kind of things, if you don't know who's going to take the lead in the crisis, if you don't know what a collaborative relationship looks like, if you don't know these things for yourself and your family, how you expect the cops to know? You think because they're cops, they're going to know? Nah, baby, that's not what they train for. They ain't going to know that kind of stuff. We just come up with things because we get so emotional. We get so emotional. We get so angry. We just come up with things. And those of us who are in the mental health field, we look at y'all like, what are you talking about? Don't even make sense. Because it don't make sense. We got to really start thinking these things through. We got to stop ignoring the signs of mental challenges in our community. We got to stop ignoring it. We got to stop ignoring the idea of educating ourselves on psychotropic medication. We got to stop ignoring it. We got to stop ignoring what happens. So the question that I have as I depart from you guys all is, do our protests work? Does it work when we get in the street and we protest and we say, stop police brutality, stop the violence, get some social workers, mental health, and all these things we do? Does it work? And I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm asking y'all a question. Does it work? What about our protests needs modification? What is not working? Maybe it is all working. I don't know. I'm asking y'all. What does work about our protests? So, what works that we need to keep, and what is not working that we need to change? The second question I have, I only got 3 questions before I get out of here, is how are our leaders, our so-called leaders that do the protests around these mental health shooters and other things like that, how, well, not even how, are our um are our leaders properly organized? I watched the video with them speaking about this shooting, some of the leaders in the community, and I'm listening to what they were saying. I'm scratching my head. I'm like, I still don't know what they're talking about. And I hate to say that, but is that just me? Does anyone else feel like that too? When we listen to some people speak, some people like to make a scene, some people like to yell and scream, and they like to make a whole bunch of nice, fancy slogans to get people worked up. But I scratch my head and I'm just like, I don't know if this is working. Like, what are y'all really trying to say here? I, I don't know if this makes sense. That's cool. Y'all got like 100 people to come out. That's cool. Y'all got 500 people to walk. But what are we actually talking about? Like, I don't know. Maybe y'all see something I don't see. That's what I'm asking. Does it work? And are our leaders properly organized? Because after this all happens, what happens? We usually go back to pancakes, bacon, and eggs, and we forget about what happened. And last but not least, this is to that one guy's point. I can't remember. I think his name was Kyrie, I think his name was. But to his point, when he talked about money, the question that I have, the final question, when I said I'm going to get to that, the final question is, can any change out of all this stuff that's going on, can any change come without money? Whether it's changing our families when it comes to mental health, whether it's changing the police department when it comes to mental health, whether it's changing our community when it comes to mental, can any of that change be possible without money? Because we can get the cops to not come inside or come with social workers, but does that fix the mental illness challenge? Does it fix it? Now, what if the cops stop coming in and stop being involved in those kind of situations? Does it stop the crisis? This is why we got to start thinking. Does it stop the crisis? What will work to limit or decrease the amount of mental health crises we're seeing in our community? See, and it's not just what we see with Naji. May he rest in peace. It's not just that. We see crisis all through our cities. Have you seen all the increased acts of violence among teenagers and young adults? If you don't think that's a mental health issue, I don't know what to say. So this all takes money. It takes money, it takes education, it takes training, it takes patience, it takes it all. And it ain't going to happen without money. There's a high turnover in my field. There's a high turnover. How do we correct that? There's a lot of people that they'll get connected to a clinician, and next thing you know, the clinician quit and go somewhere else, and the person can't find them, and then the person stopped going to therapy, then the person declines. We see that all the time. Everything takes money. You got to pay your clinicians right. You got to make sure you up the amount of physicians and psychiatrists and clinicians that can accept Medicaid for the people who do not have private insurance. You got to make sure the co-pays are feasible for the people who do have private insurance, because no one's gonna be paying $50 a week to come to counseling, and they gotta eat, they gotta feed their kids. All of this stuff takes money. Even this, Kyrie, Kyrie said, on the topic of money, there are inpatient and outpatient mental health facilities that are paid by state. They need more funding, but they are there to help. They need more funding, they need more staff, and they need to have proper salaries. Ain't nobody gonna drive themselves crazy working with a high ass caseload and not getting enough money, not getting enough sick days, vacation days. Ain't nobody gonna do all of that. Ain't nobody doing all everything takes money. Money. There you go. There's my life. She says, sounds draining. Tell me about it. So when y'all see me disappear and yes, say, well, die, I miss you. Why haven't you been on? Because it sounds draining. Because I come home, I do what I have to do with my children. Ask my babe. My baby tell you, sure, I even get rid of him too, right? Sometimes I just need to be in my own space, right? He keeps telling me we gotta buy a bigger house and I'm gonna have an apartment in the basement. So when you need your own space, I can just go in the basement and you can be upstairs. He already thinking about how can I help her because she just be drained. I just be drained. I just be drained. This is real. This is real work. Working with the mentally ill population is real work. Forget mentally ill. Forget that. Working with people who are experiencing any type of mental or emotional disruption. We're not going to say mentally ill. We're not going to say that. We're not going to say that. Working with anybody who's experiencing mental and emotional disruption is real work and it's draining. It's draining. It's draining. Right? Absolutely. And you know, people ain't doing this. Somebody said without money, people have to look after your family members and find them help. And ain't nobody doing that. It's draining. Right? Whether it's mental imbalances, mental disruptions, it's all the same. It's draining. It's draining. This is not a game. This is not a game. Our community is suffering from mental illness. I see it clear as day. And it's like a cycle, right? We have some parents, mothers in particular, not that fathers don't, but let's talk about the mothers for a second. Mothers with mental illness diagnoses that is unchecked, unmedicated, there's inconsistent treatment, they're raising children through their mental illnesses. And the children, I start seeing these little mini humans. What do you think I'm about to say? What do you think I'm about to say about these little mini humans when they're being raised in a household by their parent that has an unchecked or improperly treated mental illness? What do you think I'm going to say that happens to these little human beings? I'm going to tell y'all anyway, I'm going. I see these little human beings start to reflect the same behaviors and thought processes of their mentally ill mother. Right? Thank you, Eunice. They are mini me's of their parents. Thank you, Lana. They are a product of their parents' imbalance. I see it all the time, and that's something we don't want to talk about. I see it all the time because if you raise a child, whether it's mental illness involved or not, let's take mental illness out of it for a second. Because some of y'all just have chaotic homes, right? You may not have you may have like traits or symptoms, but you may not have a diagnosis, right? And some of y'all just have chaotic homes. Some of it's not related to mental disorders or mental illnesses. Some people just have bad behaviors. And you see those little mini adults just reflecting the same damn behavior that their parents do. They sound just like their parents. And they behave just like their parents. Because to those little mini me's, that's their normal life. That's just how we do things. That's just how our household is. That's just how we are. So if you throw mentally ill persons in that mix who are raising children, there's no other supports, there's no consistency with psychotherapy, there's no consistency with medication, there's no consistency in that area whatsoever. And now they have these little means around them, and they're raising them by themselves. And when they're going through one of their states, one of their crises, the children have to learn how to cope. And oftentimes they start to pick up and adapt the same type of behavior because it's their survival, it is what they know. There you go, Eunice. We're not about to get into it, Eunice. I'm leaving right now. I told you I was leaving 15 minutes ago. I promise I'm leaving right now. She says a lot of these households are completely out of control. They have no, I guess, boundaries or guidelines. Then on top of that, mental illness just escalated. Man, y'all ain't ready for it. Y'all ain't ready for it. Not today. Not today. Right. Somebody said, Dr. Shonna, you just said a word. I'm so worried about my friend who is mentally ill. Her son is becoming affected by her behavior. It happens. It happens. And even if we take the mental illness out, like Eunice said, we have parents, just take the mental illness out, that don't know how to manage their emotions. Woo! Anything would cause some of these people to hit the ceiling. I'm like, you had that bacon? What? Tell me again why you got mad? Because the stove was on too high? Oh, the water was running too long? I mean, all right. So you have children living in homes with people that can't manage their emotions. Mother and fathers are yelling and screaming and fighting. Everybody's talking loud. The music is always blaring in the house. There's always people in and out the house. Sometimes food is in the house. Sometimes food is not in the house. Sometimes they go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. Sometimes they go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. All this chaos, all this chaos. And you wonder why we seeing chaos in the street. Mm, mm. I'm telling you. I see it all the time. When I see people just losing, I'm like, okay, this heifer mad because her son said mommy too many times and she didn't know how to get down to his level to ask him to wait until she finished talking because it's rude to disrespect her by interrupting her. So instead of conversing with him so he can understand what he's doing wrong, she starts calling him names and cussing him out and dragging him around the place or hitting him in the back of his damn head because she's upset that he called her name too many times. I ain't making this stuff up. I'm like, babe, you know we gotta go, right? You know we gotta go. I can't be around this nonsense. We gotta go, babe. Let's get around here. Cause I'm gonna have to talk to her ass. So let's go get let me mind my business today, baby. We about to have some dinner, have some fun. This is babe, we gotta go. Ooh, did she just baby you see that? You see how she oh Lord Jesus, we gotta get me out of here if I say something. Get me out of here. Sick, sick, sick. We have so many people who are not able to manage their emotions. They have no structure, and they don't think they think it's okay. They always want to blame somebody else. Well, if you ain't say that to me, I wouldn't have cursed you out. No, you cursed them out because you couldn't manage your emotions. Stop the nonsense. Well, I didn't mean to hit him. I got angry. Oh, so it's okay to put your hands on people. Oh, okay. All right, I understand it. Okay. This is what I'm talking about. So listen, family. My prayers go out to Najee Seabrooks and his family. Yes, I do. Yes, I do, brother. Yes, I do. My prayers go out to Najee Seabrooks and his family. But I decided to do this special today for Mental Health Fridays because I want y'all to know that there are a lot of people in our community. There are a lot of people in our environment. There are a lot of people that we know personally. There are a lot of people in our families. There are a lot of people who are in need of crisis intervention. Okay. And if we don't have a plan, if we don't know what to do when a crisis occurs, if we don't know how to show up for our friends, our family members, our neighbors, our students, our patients, whatever, if we don't know how to show up, we're no different than the police when they show up. The only difference is they have guns. And when they come with their guns and there's a threat to them, they're going to do their job. They're not there to be family members. They're not there to be social workers. There to be clinicians. They're not there to be friends. They're not there to be your homeboys. They got families that they're trying to go home to as well. And there's some of them that are afraid. They send a whole bunch of punks in our communities. Somebody could be screaming and they just shoot him and go, he black and he's screaming, go shoot him. We know that happens. We know that happens. So it goes back to that same question I ask all the time. What is our plan? And should the cops be the first line of defense for our community, or should they be the last line of defense? Can we solve these things on our own? Can we start to do some preventative work so that we don't have to use them in a mental health crisis? Maybe we should just be using when a crime is occurring or to prevent a crime from occurring, what they get paid to do. They don't get paid to do mental health. So what can we do? What can we do, family? That we get it all together. We start learning about crisis plans and we start learning about preventative works and preventative measures. And we start really taking our time to educate ourselves on our friends, our loved ones, our neighbors' mental health diagnosis and status so we can properly help them. Maybe we can do some workshops or trainings, but we have to do something. We have to do something because 911 is not to go for mental health. I said it before in one of my videos. I'm going to say it again. I do not want us calling 911 for a mental health crisis for police to show up if we don't have to. If we don't have to. I know some of us have to, but if we don't have to, we should not be calling the cops to show up for mental health crisis. We should have a mental health crisis plan in place and follow that to a T. The cops should be our last resort. I love you all. I love you all for real. Have a great night.